All right, this is the PSA to my fellow YouTube sports creators, or if you're a fan of other creators, you might want to send this to them or tag them in this video, whatever. Let them know. Huge shout out to my guy Marcus G 1300, one of the subscribers that always holds me down. Let me know that somebody was plagiarizing the video. Now look, everybody borrows. I'm used to being borrowed from. That happens if you make anything that works, but this right here is just egregious. You guys might want to check on some of these AI pages and see what they're doing with your work. You guys know I don't like long intros also, so let's get to it. Game 2 could potentially be the last game of the season for the Indiana Fever, and I don't think so, but it does have the potential to be. So let's get right to it.
Here we are, standing on the precipice of what could be the Indiana Fever's final game of the season. Is it really the end? I don't think so, but we can't ignore the possibility. Let's dive in.
WNBA, that was an embarrassment on the ref's behalf. The call on Aaliyah Boston to start the game off with the review, that was unnecessary. You guys can never get an out of bounds call right, ever.
Because, quite frankly, there's a lot to unpack. Starting with the WNBA itself, the referees, embarrassing, the out of bounds calls, inconsistent to say the least. And don't even get me started on that ridiculous review of Aaliyah Boston's opening play. The game hadn't even properly begun, and we were already subjected to an unnecessary review that only highlighted the ref's inability to make simple calls. Before we continue,
I've said this on previous videos about previous games, and we saw it here again. And sometimes it does go in the Fever's favor, yeah, but so what? Get the calls right.
anyway, let's get back to the podcast. Let me make one thing clear. Sure, we've seen bad calls go both ways in the past, but the inconsistency is staggering. How many times have I said this in previous games? They can't get an out of bounds call right to save their lives. And once again, it was on full display.
You never even review or replay these things. It's like you're in at the gym for 2 hours and you got to get out of there. That's how you guys run the games.
The referees act like they're just punching the clock, trying to get through the 2 hours and call it a day. It's like, oh, we're almost done. No time for reviews. Well, guess what? You need to get the calls right. The game matters.
The eye gouge. How do you miss that? Not only we'll talk about its intentionality in just a second, but the fact that it got Dejanay Carrington 2 points the other way. That affected the game, beyond just CC's eye and her shooting. And I know she said that it didn't affect her shooting, but we'll never know, right?
Take Dejanay Carrington's eye gouge on Clark, for example. How do you miss something that obvious? Even worse, Carrington's act resulted in 2 points for the other side. It's not just about Clark, it's about the ripple effect that one missed call had on the entire game. And while Clark said the incident didn't affect her shooting, we'll never truly know. It's like trying to argue the butterfly effect. One thing leads to another, and suddenly you're in a totally different game.
Let's get back to Dejanay Carrington. That was intentional. I'm not going to show the reverse angle, slow down. We all saw it. That was intentional. I see some people saying that she got a retaliation, so it's all good. It's not. I mean, Caitlyn did get a retaliation like a big girl. She doesn't need an enforcer to do it for her. She doesn't need us to talk about Dejanay Carrington. She handled her own business out there, but she shouldn't have to.
Now let's address the elephant in the room. Carrington's move was intentional. Don't even try to sugarcoat it. We all saw the reverse angle, and anyone pretending it wasn't deliberate is kidding themselves. And sure, I've seen people claim that Caitlin Clark got her retaliation and that it's all fair in playoff basketball. But here's the thing, Caitlin doesn't need an enforcer. She handled her business, but she shouldn't have had to. Let's stop glorifying rough play just because it's the playoffs. This isn't UFC, it's basketball.
And I actually saw some people commending the refs for not calling those fouls, saying that this is playoff basketball and it's not supposed to be soft. That's not basketball. Playoff basketball, that's not any kind of basketball. That's a slap fight. That's an episode of Claws or something. I don't know. It's not basketball. So let's get that out of the way.
Speaking of rough play, I've seen some folks commending the refs for not calling fouls, saying that it's playoff basketball and it shouldn't be soft. Come on now. That's not basketball. That's a slap fight. We're not watching a reality TV cat fight like Claws. This is supposed to be high level professional basketball. So let's cut the nonsense and call the game correctly.
All right, and the last very obvious thing is that Caitlin Clark and Kelsey Mitchell have to shoot their threes a lot better than they did in the first game. I think we all know that. And I think they will too. We have a lot of faith that they will because they never shoot that poorly. But it won't matter if the refs get their act right. It won't matter if the Connecticut Sun come back down to earth with their own shooting. If Kelsey and Caitlin Clark shoot like that again.
Now that we've aired out the officiating grievances, let's talk about what truly matters the players. Caitlin Clark and Kelsey Mitchell need to shoot better from beyond the arc, plain and simple. Game one saw some of their worst three-point shooting performances all season, and everyone knows it. But I have faith they'll bounce back because they rarely have two bad games in a row. However, their shooting won't even matter if the refs don't get their act together or if the Connecticut Sun continue their hot streak.
All right, Lexi Ho, she's cooled down in the past few games, so we can't expect her to go 70, 80% every game. They're going to have to hit their shots, especially now that Stephanie White has stumbled across giving Mabry more minutes.
Then there's Lexi Ho. She's cooled off in the last few games, and we can't expect her to shoot 70 to 80% every time she steps on the floor.
I said it after the last game. I said that was one of the reasons that I felt like the Indiana Fever beat the Sun because they didn't give Mabry enough minutes, and she's their only volume three-point shooter. Here, I'll play a quick clip of that, and then we'll get to the clips from the game. Haven't seen that much during this winning streak. It's always been two of the big three on the floor. Matter of fact, against Connecticut, they played 38 minutes each. In my opinion, that's what got them to win. Not enough minutes from Mabry, who was their best three-point shooter by far.
Indiana's winning streak leading into the playoffs show one thing. When two of the big three play significant minutes, they tend to win. That formula worked against Connecticut, where Caitlin Clark and Kelsey Mitchell each played 38 minutes.
So more Mabry we can't fix, but we can fix some things on our end. First of all, we're giving the shooters too much space. We saw this with Kelsey Plum with the Aces. We've seen it all season. Now, yes, there's a little bit of hook, but we're trying to get better, not make excuses, right? And so the first thing is you have to step up. Step up and shut off the baseline so that she can't even set a screen on you.
But let's not kid ourselves. The Fever need more than just good players logging heavy minutes. They need to fix their defensive lapses, especially when it comes to closing out on shooters. We've seen this before, haven't we? The Fever leave too much space for shooters like Kelsey Plum from the Aces, and now it's happening with the Sun. And don't even get me started on Lexi Hull's defensive positioning. The film speaks for itself. She's ball watching, and when she's not in the lane, she's not close enough to contest shots. It's maddening to watch.
I'm not here to pick on Lexi Hull at all, but the film says what the film says. Whatever energy drink she took that had her hopping around, it was good for her on the offensive glass. It was horrible for her on defense.
I'm not here to pick on Lexi, but the truth is in the tape. Whatever energy drink she had before the game that gave her the edge on the offensive glass clearly didn't help her on defense.
All right, so this is how you know that it's a coaching thing and not just a player mistake because you see it way too often. Dejanay is not the threat that Bonner is, but here they switch places, and you see the same thing happening with Lexi that we just saw before. How do you think this is going to turn out?
This isn't just a Lexi problem, though. It's a coaching issue. If it were a one-off, I wouldn't mention it, but it's been happening too often.
Now, let's take a look at this. Aaliyah Boston, Dewana Bonner, what do you see there? An 80-pound difference, 220 to 140. So whenever they get the switch on the pick and roll, if Bonner's going to be defending Caitlin Clark and they go a 1-5 pick and roll, this is what I want to see from Aaliyah Boston. She had a decent game at 17 and 11, but she should have had way more. I'm sorry, I wasn't satisfied with that 17 and 11. Even though it was efficient, I should have saw 30 points from Aaliyah Boston.
And then we have Aaliyah Boston, whose 17.11 rebound game was efficient, but left me wanting more. She should be dominating, especially when matched up against someone like Dewana Bonner, who weighs 80 pounds less. If Aaliyah Boston plays with more aggression, this series could turn around quickly.
And so while everybody is saying that we need a 4 to play next to Aaliyah Boston next season, we actually need a 5. If we could find an inside-outside 5 like John Quill Jones out there somewhere, that would be great because we need rim protection and somebody who can space the floor on the other side. Aaliyah Boston is a 4. She's, besides being 6'5", there's nothing centerish about her. She doesn't protect the rim that way.
Aaliyah Boston is a natural power forward. Despite her height, she doesn't have the rim protecting instincts of a traditional center. If the Fever are serious about contending next year, they need to pair her with a legitimate center, someone who can defend the rim and space the floor. A player like Jonquil Jones would be a dream fit, though finding someone of that caliber isn't easy. The Fever need to start thinking long-term about their front court, especially if they want to build around Boston.
I'm looking forward to seeing her do that in game 2. Now, of course, we got to leave off on a positive note, all right? Some things worked. Dantas, she's always going to come in and hit her shots. She did in this game, 24 minutes, and she played well. Besides that post-up, I never want to see a post-up from her again.
As we look ahead to game 2, there are some positives. Dan has played well in her 24 minutes, and while I never want to see her post up again, she was effective in her role.
Caitlin Clark, she was able to get free. They'll show the blocks, but she was able to get free. She just missed a lot of shots. If she can finish game two with two good eyes and at least three functioning limbs, and I have a good feeling this thing is coming back to Indiana for game three.
Caitlin Clark managed to get free on several occasions despite her struggles from the field. If she can finish game two with two good eyes and at least three functioning limbs, there's hope that Indiana can push this series to a game three.
If not, then I'll be back with my first week of NFL coverage. And I'll be talking about the USC Trojans and Iowa Hawkeyes, all right?
But it's all on the line now. If the Fever lose, it's back to the drawing board, and we'll be talking about the NFL and college football.
All right, that's enough. You get the point. I feel a little bit dirty after that, even though I just got out the shower not long ago, but just wanted to get that out there so you other creators can be aware. I'm pretty sure you already know how easy it is to just lift your transcript from the YouTube video and then throw it into an AI voiceover. They can, all the work that you sat down and did for hours, they can just replicate in like 3 minutes if you allow it. So we have to be diligent, you guys. And for the people out there watching, don't watch that shit. You can tell when it's AI. Just don't watch the shit. Or like make your favorite creators aware. Like I said, shout out to Marcus G. Let us know when you see that stuff. You might not run into it. You might not recognize it. You may have never seen the original creator. So it's better just not to watch the AI shit, in my opinion. But that's just me. I'll end this one here. You guys have a great one. See you on the next one.